Dear audience, welcome to the talk with topic Global Trends in Education and Importance of Experiential Learning that will be delivered by Dr. Ronald Kovach in In4 OBE Global Virtual Summit 2022. Dr. Ronald Kovach did his PhD in Adult Education at Northern Illinois University. He serves as Executive Director of the American International Accreditation Association of Schools and Colleges. He is recognized globally as an expert in experiential learning and international education. He has delivered numerous talks and presented many papers in international symposiums. He has diverse experience of working with international faculty, organizing trainings, workshops, and integration of concepts of experiential learning into university curricula. He has won over $3 million grant for experiential learning. He has served at key positions for many organizations like President, Society for Experiential Education, Treasurer and Founding Director of International Experiential Education Academy. So please welcome Dr. Ronald Kovach for a wonderful talk. Dr. Ronald Kovach, house is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Javier. I appreciate it. And hello to attendees. I appreciate it and I'm honored to be with you today to talk about the global trends in education and how important experiential education is. My remarks today will hopefully clarify what experiential education is, how it relates to outcome-based education, and how international universities can identify ways in which to enhance teaching and learning. As you see from this first slide, the global trends in higher education run the range from international accreditation to international cooperation in research to international strategic directions and national policy, both in K through 12 through university, so that there is a seamless process. Also, entrepreneurship and certainly experiential education embraces and includes entrepreneurship. We also want to make sure that we understand that experiential education enhances the employer collaboration, and that equity and inclusion is an important part of both global trends as well as experiential education. And the focus really about EE or experiential education is that it increases and enhances student engagement as opposed to students merely being passive receptors of information. They're creating knowledge. I draw your attention to the next slide from the jobs report of the World Economic Forum about how universities can better prepare students. The top 10 skills now, you can see on the right, what was about 5 to 7 years ago, but the top 10 skills that employers want from students include complex problem solving and critical thinking. And without reading the list to you, it's coordinating with others and emotional intelligence, increased ability to make judgments and decisions, to negotiate, and to have cognitive flexibility. So my remarks today emphasize that experiential education does reach all of these skills. So as opposed to students merely being passive receptors in a classroom, it gets them to apply what they're learning, interact with others, including potential employers. So in a few minutes, I will talk about what are the various kinds of experiential learning opportunities, because the most important thing is that students become engaged. It enhances their learning, and they have the ability to apply what it is that they've learned while they are while they are university students. So that's really the key. They're learning while they're doing, they're learning while they're studying, they're applying both. So it really comes down to really a both and issue. So one of the questions is, why do experiential learning? And the caveat that I throw out is that many times professors and universities say, there's so much knowledge that I have to impart to students. I don't have time to engage them, number one, or to engage them in projects. They don't know enough. And I think that the key for experiential learning is that learning is a communal activity. It's not about the sage on the stage, but it's the guide by the side. That rethinking the way that we teach, rethinking the way that curricula is developed, includes engaging and including students. To facilitate learning by doing is the natural way. All of us have learned by doing something, not merely by learning the basics and the fundamentals alone. But experiential learning is not excluding a foundation for the concepts and the theories, quite the contrary. It's academically focused to provide the contexts by which students can apply what they have learned and to practice what new concepts are, new methods, new theories, and new policies. It involves and engages the student in the business community with real people, with real personalities, with different interpretations, individual agendas, and personal motivations. So while students are in university, they have some experience that allows them to understand the way that their particular field and the way that the world of work operates, as opposed to merely reading about it or studying about it. So it makes the abstract real, and it makes what is unfamiliar more familiar. And one of the keys is when students have these experiences while they are studying, they bring more to the classroom, which then helps the learning community that is within that particular classroom, both for the professor as well as for their peers. You can go to Google and other resources for facts, figures, and information, but you gain wisdom and understanding from experiences. So when we talk about internationalization being the key, our purposes are to enlarge international communication and cooperation. Again, because we have new and different experiences and different ways to communicate and apply what it is that we've learned. We train international talents by teaching them about the way in which competition in the business field or not-for-profit areas, what international laws are, but we hopefully provide students with the opportunity to learn these things. So while internationalization, I think we would all agree, is the key, cooperation, international cooperation and partnerships are part of at least professors and administrators, their breadth of knowledge and how they expand by participating. So I call your attention to the fact that we're all enhanced and emboldened when we cooperate and participate with our peers internationally. Well, that is the key and the core of what experiential education is at the undergraduate or the graduate level. Certainly, international accreditation is important, but I think the key here really is that learning by doing is active, it's applied, and it's engaged. In a recent study from Northeastern University in the Boston area, this is about Americans. The global study work opportunities, 76% of the participants in the survey said that that worldwide perspective is important. 67% believe that entrepreneurship and teaching those kinds of skills is important. But when you think about entrepreneurship, essentially what it is, it's students learning to grow their own businesses with their own creative ideas and taking the design theories that they have studied and really doing it. So entrepreneurship is also another way to think a bit more about experiential learning. And 90% of the survey participants in this research study, a national study, said that cooperative educational experiences where students work and go to school at the same time, integrate the professional work opportunities into higher education, and that 90% believe that that better prepares students for the real world. So that really serves as the foundation of my remarks today, of better understanding experiential education and understanding both the theory as well as the research and the scholarship behind it, and integrating that into the curriculum of your field and certainly of the college or university in which you work is certainly very important. But 67% of the participants of the survey believe that US colleges should teach entrepreneurial skills. So our focus in experiential education is less about the how and more about the what. So we move from passive to active learning and experiential learning through engagement, better engagement in the classroom with students and professors, and better engagement in the community. This is, after all, where they will be applying what we teach them. So the traditional versus the progressive way of teaching goes back to one of the founders of experiential learning, and that's John Dewey, way back in the 1930s. So you can see from this particular slide that on the left-hand side, everything is very teacher-oriented or professor-oriented. It's very theoretical, it's very abstract. The learner is the receptacle. Knowledge is imposed from above. It's content-driven. On the other side, the right side that we see, it's more activity-based, it's more concrete, it's learner-centered, not professor-centered. The learner is a participant in his or her learning. And the important thing, I think we would all agree, that knowledge changes. You name the field, we know in 3 to 5 years, you have to relearn things because the world is dynamic and it changes. We need to teach students how to learn, not what to learn, but how to find knowledge, how to embrace knowledge, and how to be self-learners. So experiential learning fulfills those concepts because it's constructed, knowledge is constructed by the individual, and it emphasizes an integration of everything that they've learned into practical realities. So as I mentioned earlier in my remarks, the guide by the side is the way to think about some of these. There is an organization about to go through a name change. They've been around for 52 years, and I had the honor of holding many positions, including the president of the National Society for Experiential Education, who is now going to change to the Society for Experiential Education. And we also have an experiential learning teaching in higher ed journal for current scholarship. So I certainly encourage you to identify and connect with what now will be in a few short weeks, the Society for Experiential Education. The importance of the society is that it has 8 principles. So this helps define what any of us should be referring to when we talk about experiential education. It's not just a term to throw out, but they're based upon these 8 principles. Very important is certainly the intention, how to prepare and plan with students for their experience. Authenticity, meaning real world experience. Reflection is probably the key pillar of these 8 standards or these 8 principles. How to orient and train students for the experience that's going to enhance the classroom that they are currently involved in. The monitoring and continuous improvement of the program that the students are undergoing, how important assessment and evaluation is, and certainly the acknowledgement and the celebration of the learning that the students have gone through. So when we talk about what is experiential education, these are the defining pillars of what we mean. And it's very important to be on the same page and have similar foundations for what experiential education is about. So John Dewey, going back to him, he said, there's no point in the philosophy of progressive education, which is sounder than the importance of the participation of the learner in the formation of the purposes which direct his or her activities in the learning process. So the emphasis is on everything being learner-centered. Teaching students how to learn is a life skill that is very important because, as I mentioned before, knowledge keeps changing. The next slide talks a little bit about the fact that learning is change and that how our brain acquires knowledge, and this neuroscience is the result of organizing and reorganizing. That learning is always happening, whether it's conscious or unconscious, and that how it's aligned with the brain and how we acquire and retain information is the way that we learn, not just being receptacles. The types of experiential learning experiences, not that this is the most comprehensive, but I mentioned before, cooperative education, cultural immersion, oftentimes in exchanges, international exchanges and study abroad, design projects that rather than just studying in a classroom about something, the professor brings in projects from the community that are doable within the term of that particular class and gives students the opportunity to then react and participate with community leaders if you're helping them make suggestions of a design project or a problem that students can try to solve or at least begin to solve, and then getting that type of feedback from someone in the community. Internships, of course, you're probably very familiar with those. Practicums or clinicals, which many, particularly in the health sciences, experience. That's why we put nurses into clinical settings, because they have to learn by doing. Service learning, where students, even in a volunteer way, can participate in an organization and learn better about how working with others is important and how they can apply and share their knowledge. And also undergraduate research, working with professors in helping design, helping and contributing to the research project that you or I may be participating in. So the overlay of experiential learning theory is the idea that you take the concrete experience, students need to reflect upon it, then they can conceptualize things abstractly, then they practice it, and then the cycle continues to go around and around, enhancing each of those areas. So the best way to think about it is sort of pistons in a machine, that you have to have everything operating on all cylinders. And this is essentially the work of David Cole. So there are many, many people who have participated and contributed to these threshold comments. And learning requires change, and that's, of course, a major focus. There are principles of both standards as well as ethical and best practices in experiential learning, and that reflective practices requires that everyone participate in the experience as a learner and has mutual responsibility, and that learning is continuous. So these next three slides just very briefly talk about who were the foundational people of contributors to experiential learning. And most of these names are very familiar to you, and their theories are probably familiar as well, but it all comes together in experiential learning. Everything from scaffolding and learning to authenticity to critical reflection, mindful learning, transformational learning. These are the tenets of experiential learning scholarship. One of the keynoters in this conference is George Koo and his National Survey for Student Engagement, as well as other research that he has done with the American Association of Colleges and Universities is certainly, again, a foundational piece to experiential learning. So what has happened as a result of this new knowledge in the pandemic? Well, we know there's emerging fields of neuroscience and cognitive science and learning analytics and virtual and augmented reality. This creates new strategies for learning, and certainly experiential education fits into not just the science of learning, but also the strategies for learning. So essentially my remarks today have been about hopefully taking, even in a micro view, your university, but hopefully in a national view, that everyone wins when students and faculty and administration and community participate in the community of learning. So the idea here is that experiential education is the bridge to the community, to businesses, to not-for-profits, to engaging students and making it more interesting for them because they're applying and they're learning how to learn, and then how they can reapply when they come back into the classroom, whether it's that particular course again, or whether it's their subsequent courses, that they have more knowledge to bring in and that they should be better engaged with you as the guide by the side, as opposed to the sage on the stage. That I think we have to move away from, I have all the knowledge and the students know nothing, to the fact that they are not empty vessels, that if we provide them with the experiences in a variety of ways to engage with their learning and to apply their learning, then everyone wins. Students become better graduates. Employers have a chance to even view who the potential talent is, because they may be involved, say, in clinicals and or in internships, and that professors understand that a different way of teaching leads to a different way of learning and a different way of applying the knowledge that they can work and participate with in the classroom. So those conclude my remarks, and I certainly thank this network of scholars and administrators for providing me with that opportunity. And I certainly would be available at any time in my role as the executive director of the International Accreditation Association of Schools and Colleges, or AIAASC, to answer any of your questions or to partner with you internationally, since we do accredit both K through 12 as well as universities. So thank you for your time, and I appreciate it.